Welcome, everybody, to the People's Weekly. This is one of your three co-hosts for the afternoon, Nolan Hack. We also have Canadian Glenn and Tim Best Buds. Good to be with all of you this afternoon, Friday, November the 9th, coming to you in Los Angeles, California, in the United States, and also up north in Canada.
You know what? When I said go, I was going to start the music, but it's cool. Now we started.
Oh, bro. Okay. I jumped the gun.
I unmuted you real fast when you started talking.
So I don't know how much of that you heard, ladies and gentlemen, but yeah, we're live with the People's Weekly after I would say, successful Live on the 5 and worldwide Million Mask March.
See, now this is why I have a problem with changing roles. See, how is Nolan supposed to know that the tune was playing and stuff? He can't see the board.
Well, it didn't. I said, here we go. I was about to play the tune, and Nolan started talking, so I was like, fuck it, and just... Because my voice is all messed up. That's why I had to switch roles. I didn't want to come in. I usually am monotone, but you hear how I sound, man. I sound like a monster or something. Rah.
Well, we all sound like monsters to our respective federal governments, anyways. So.
Nolan, you and Jen's show was awesome. Glenn's show was like really depressing.
I mean, ours wasn't happy-go-lucky either.
Well, no, I know, but it's just like, yeah. I mean, I already know what's going on with that stuff, though. You know what I mean? That's the stuff we always talk about. Glenn's show is like, you're being screwed and don't even really know it, and you're letting yourself be screwed. Then they went into some details on like just the way things went online and changed, and I started thinking back, and I was like, yeah, I never thought about it like that. This is when this happened. This is when this started happening. This is when all this junk started happening. Yeah, both of you guys did some super awesome shows.
Wow.
I still have that flu from the 5th. It hasn't gone away yet, so just bear with my sniffling and my nasal voice and all that madness.
Well, maybe it was one of those B-sized drones America's making, and maybe they're putting some diseases in the air. Who knows? But they are making drones the size of bees.
I did swallow a bee-sized drone the other day. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
There you go. So, could have been that. Who knows? But this is a legitimate thing. And Glenn spoke so well on it in terms of things that we don't know and don't realize that are happening and being done to us, and you're not going to be able to see or notice those things, and our privacy will be cut down even more.
Well, I think the biggest issue out of that entire discussion, I mean, never mind how Wild West it is as far as individual internet users' rights or respect thereof or anything else. It's almost to the point now, which, I mean, it never was supposed to be. I mean, like Neil said at one point during the show, a lot of big advances over the past 25 years with the internet, with different protocols, or stuff like that. There used to be sort of a consensus that, that's really cool. Wow, look what those guys invented. But that'll get democratized. I mean, the whole open source spirit, the whole spirit of everybody working to improve the internet, yeah, that's all pretty much out the window now. And the things are brought to the internet that improve profit margins and market position and, who can I crush because we have this tool and our competition doesn't. The whole focus is changing pretty fast. James put in 6 years of traveling and documenting and researching to make that book of his, Alternative War. And it's not that the U.S. election or the Brexit vote was this big groundbreaking reveal of these methods. That was just the ones that were more powerful than anything before, more out there in your face. And like James said during the show, 16 months later, Cambridge Analytica fucked with the UK Brexit vote. And so what? What do you do about it? It's over. The result stands. Cambridge Analytica is bankrupt. Everybody's disappeared. What do you do? So what? So you found out. It don't matter. It doesn't change anything. And I think that's the real dangerous part of where things are going. Even when you know who screwed you, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. And when you're actually, if you find out beforehand, a lot of times, and are trying to scream from the rooftops, you're either silenced or called a crackpot. So it's very difficult to stop it, even when you have a chance. Or the third option, Edward Snowden told everybody about this, a lot of this stuff, and how the NSA is just taking our files at will and our information, and nobody cared. I mean, they did little interviews. I think it was in New York, asking people, "So, what do you think of Edward Snowden and the information that he leaked?" And most of them went, "Who?" And then Congress voted to keep all these laws in place to continue to steal our data and spy on us legally, according to the United States government. Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that just also says how quick things change. 4 years ago, everybody was worried about the government. The government is, it's sad to say, because in Canada, there's been this issue all of a sudden because somebody wants to get political mileage out of it. Statistics Canada has asked Canadian chartered banks to supply data on 500,000 accounts a year. And they want to do it to forecast financial trends, etc. And it's like, okay. I can understand that. Whether they actually do it legitimately is another question. But that's a permanent government agency that does our census, tracks how government money is spent, if it works, if it didn't work. So your choice is between a permanent agency of the federal government or people like Aggregate IQ, like SCL Group, who don't even say that they're collecting, don't tell you what they're collecting, and you're never going to know what they do with it. The thing is, when it comes to selling your personal data, at least if your own government does it, there's a bit of recourse. It doesn't mean you're ever going to get satisfaction. You may be in court for half your life, but at least there's an avenue to go down. But when it's these private companies, you're fucked. Nothing's going to happen. And the sad part, well, according to James, he's got two choices for where the internet's going. Either you turn it off and you clean out people who are driving this way and then you start it up again, or else you have some sort of international guidelines. And, as usual, technology moves at 10 times the pace that the human brain does. We invent all this shit to screw each other over, and nobody thinks about the consequences. Now, is it too late? Well, James says it is. When you're up, it's one thing to be up against the NSA or the Bureau or the agency and somebody like that. It's well known. Everybody knows where they're located. Everybody knows they have unlimited money. Everybody knows they shouldn't be trusted. But when you're dealing with these data brokers who treat your information like stock, like any other good that can be valued and bought and sold, you get into this, they're a corporation. They have privacy rights. Yeah, they have privacy rights. Well, they hold all your privacy. So, it's a lot harder. It's even worse than governments collecting on you. That's my opinion on it.
And you said, what is there anything we could do about it? And
get off social media. That's all you can do about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're absolutely right.
I think it goes further than that. You have to get rid of some devices too.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. It's going to be it would be one of those things you're really making an extreme choice, but of course an extreme measure was taken to get you to make that choice. I think, for one, I agree. It's too late to, I think, stop the government from doing it, because it's law. It's federal law. It's hard enough to pass something, let alone get it on the table to even have the lawmakers consider passing something. But then try to pass something, and then now we're going to try to repeal something and make a new law. So I definitely agree with that. I think with a lot of the questions that are posed on this show, what to do, what do we do about it? I think the same answer a lot of times when that question is posed to the rest of the hosts. We have to go after the system. We have to go after the federal government, and in droves. Europe does it all the time, right or wrong, in terms of things that they protest. They come out in large numbers, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and America especially very apathetic, just like after Snowden came out and told everybody what the government was doing. People didn't care. Even when they heard about it and actually knew who he was, people still didn't care. Look at the elections that just happened. I didn't hear anybody making that a point on anybody's platform, or pressuring any of these politicians to make it a point on one of their platforms to get rid of this mass surveillance, challenge this mass surveillance in Congress. So it's same answer a lot of times for these questions of oppression. You have to go after the system and the government and get rid of it, as difficult as that is. But that's the only option you're left with, other than a different kind of extreme where you don't have a cell phone, or you live in the woods or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think it's like that Area 51. If you go down to the lowest level, they have like a server that looks like Hell 9000. And if we could just destroy that, that's the internet, right?
Is that true?
No. When you say we have to go destroy the internet.
I don't know what's in there, so that's why I'm asking.
I was going to start a conspiracy theory.
Barney the dinosaur could be in there for all I know.
No. Yeah, but I don't know how you would destroy the whole thing, or how you would get everybody to stop and turn it off. It would have to be just some people kind of thing. And then you're still surrounded by it. Because like every camera on the streets, everything's connected to everything, so you're always on it. It seems like a futile effort to try to even get away from it.
Well, that's because of what the root motivation is. Money. Everything's about money. And like James said on the show, when Germany passed their new hate speech laws, which are pretty strong, and Twitter had to adapt. They had to enforce that law in Germany. So, like James said, see, it can be done. Twitter had to put Germany in a box, and there were different rules for accounts based in Germany. So it can be done. But the issue is there's absolutely no business model for platforms that derive their value from number of users, from traffic, from exchange. There's absolutely no reason for them to stop this stuff, because basically what they'd be doing is cutting their market cap in half.
Yeah, I don't know who it was on your show, it said when they do these big purges of the bot accounts, they said they're not really trying to get rid of all of them because they depend on more accounts to make more money or something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just it's crazy, man. It's really crazy. We started this show off with a cool tangent.
Well, this is a good one. There's always a tangent. So let's go on.
And this is all because you didn't open the show.
Ouch, that's cold.
Yeah, if I open the show and start with some other random tangent that wasn't this groovy.
You got the largest company on earth, at least the most profitable, Amazon. They've been trying to get their hands on a $10 billion defense contract from the United States government, and trying to get cloud data and help them build such a thing. That way, here's all this data for you, Pentagon. You can look at whatever you want, spy on whoever you want, and we'll just take your money and just be quiet about it. And they've been trying to get a hold of this contract for a while now, and it's been in things like Vanity Fair even. It's been on the left, it's been on the right. It's something like Telesur TV or the Washington Times, and yet no one really cares. And there's that apathy again.
I mean, that's the issue, though. When it's a government agency and they are conducting the activity directly, they're collecting it, they've got it. And that's where it ends. But when they contract out, they say, we're doing our job. Here's all that data you requested. But they also have it too. And that's the big issue here. As unaccountable as governments are today, international corporations are less accountable.
Of course.
Because that's what the government's answered to, isn't it? In a lot of cases.
Well, I mean, it's, again, we can go back to that F word, the combination of government and industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a deep hole. And, again, I mean, imagine driving, if McDonald's still had their signs the way they used to be. I remember when he used to say, X billion served. And those numbers would change, every once in a while. Imagine if you drove by the same one every day, and all of a sudden one day it was cut in half. Think, holy shit, what happened there? And that's exactly what Facebook and Twitter are looking at if they enforce the way they can. They just simply won't. There's nobody's going to force them to leave all that money on the table, because that is how they generate money. And even on the show I mentioned that Frontline did a two-part episode a few weeks ago now about Facebook and about Cambridge Analytica and about all the fuckery that's going on. And, you know, that's the bottom line. They expanded so fast and did absolutely nothing to make provision for it. It's like people that sell 5 times more tickets to a concert than there are seats. You know, they just, hey, people are still lined up. I'll take their money. You know, that's the issue. Like Facebook especially did absolutely nothing to control this when it started to happen. And by the time they were forced to do something, is way too late. The executive vice president of Facebook for digital security global, Nathaniel Gleicher, said on camera, this is not a problem you eliminate. This is a problem you contain. So they have no intention. Yeah. Absolutely none.
Well, you need to, I think, well, it should be public record. We'll probably never find out the true numbers and the true layers to it, but how much coin, how much clout did Cambridge Analytica give to Facebook for Facebook allowing them to do this? You're talking about messing with elections all over the world, giving the most outwardly racist U.S. president the White House since Harry Truman. So this is it's a little bit serious. And, you know, the same, you look at the UK, you look at Brazil, you look all over the freaking map, and people who are more far right and more leaning towards fascism or just straight out fascists, they get into office thanks to Cambridge Analytica and more apathy. I mean, when the story broke, it was huge for about a day and a half, and then people just went, "Oh, that's too bad. You know, let's move on."
That's how all this stuff works. People just have such a short attention span for these tragic things, and they hit us so fast they're on to the next one, and they don't think like, hey, that last one was still happening, you know?
Yeah, that
piles up too. Yeah,
that's a condition. You know, that's something that's imposed, and
definitely.
You know, of course, people go along with it. But I mean, like Neil said on my show, the 2016 presidential election came down to 3 states and 88,000 votes. That's it. So you don't need this huge machine out there on the internet pushing its way around, bugging people, asking them questions. All you need to do is find the right people. That's the problem with all this data targeting. They can target so accurately now. I mean, it used to be pollsters and stuff like that would look at ridings or districts. They would look at the numbers for the entire district. And then there are polls in every district. So then they started looking at the poll numbers, which is more specifically neighborhoods and streets. Now they can get your address, all your shopping data. They can figure out what day of the week you buy groceries, because people love routine. They can figure out so many things about you. They can put things in your face that are meant to be there, but you would have absolutely no idea that it was engineered to be there. This is what's so scary now. It's become so precise. I mean, say that last time you ran in an election and you lost by 1,000 votes and there was 100,000 votes, just to make it simple. Well, all you'd have to do is find out what neighborhoods were 80% against you. The neighborhoods that were 80% for you, you don't have to spend any money there. You know that. You know, these are the advantages and the ins and the outs. that are available when you start using this shit on that fine of a scale. You can figure out which specific Facebook accounts to send something to, and what time of the day or night, and what day of the week, because you know all that. You know when they're on the site, you know when they post, and that's stuff that the government never saw a purpose in collecting, because they're the government. We don't have to beat anybody. You know? Yeah. They had specific problems to solve. What's going on now with these data harvesters is, no matter what your problem is, give us a call. I bet you we got a data set that'll give you some answers. And that's why it's so powerful, because they truly can be a one-stop way of making people do things. There's no nicer way to say it. They can change. Yeah. I mean, if there's a company out there that can put 5,000 data points on your profile, they know more about you than you do at a conscious level.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yep. And that's big money.
We should probably... go ahead.
Data is the most valuable commodity on the face of the earth.
Yeah, I was going to say we should probably move on soon. But
okay.
I mean, definitely everyone check out the view up here from November 5th. It's what we talked about in this last 20 minutes is just like the tip of the iceberg. It's a really, really good show. I highly recommend it. What is the first topic? The first non-tangent.
First actual topic.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Wednesday night, there was yet another terror attack by a white guy who was also a veteran. This makes 4 attacks by wrote. 4 attacks by white domestic terrorists in about 2 weeks. But according to the White House, immigrants are the problem, not these people that are killing everybody. So yeah, I don't know what to do. It just seems like they just defunded domestic, the Homeland Security domestic terrorism branch or whatever. And these people are killing us like crazy. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, don't worry. As soon as these elections are over, they'll stop." But either way, who cares? Why does that? Why is that supposed to reassure people? They were killing people. I mean, there was no elections when James Field tried to massacre a group of people, or Dylan Roof walked into church, and all this other stuff. I mean, these people are just escalating this. And I guess now the immigrants aren't an issue anymore the day after the election or whatever. But it's just like, why won't anyone? I mean, it's this guy. They're like, oh, he was a good guy. He was a veteran. He had PTSD, or he was violent in his youth, or this. I know. I mean, you got on, but you always hear these people talking about, oh, I wish I could have just reached out to him. And these white terrorists get more love than black victims. Philando Castile didn't do anything wrong. Tamir Rice didn't do anything wrong, but they were demonized. They're talking about the guy smoked weed. He may deserve it. The little kid looked like an adult. It's crazy. I don't know. Go ahead. What?
Just look at arguably the two most famous white men and black men in the history of the United States: George Washington and Martin Luther King. Washington, a hero times a million in this country when he was living, and now since his death. King, a villain, big time villain in this country during his life, very short life. And if we're being honest, the things that he actually spoke on, the detail he actually went into, for being honest about what he said and the things he fought for, people don't agree with him. Most people do. They
whitewashed a lot of it too.
They've whitewashed him to try to sanitize what the civil rights movement was, and to try to stop that from ever happening again. But you look at those two people. You know, one of them has the nation's capital named after him, along with the state, along with they're on the coin, they're on the $1 bill, you name it, and the other was killed by the federal government, and 3/4 of white America did not like him, Martin Luther King. So that's just an example. It doesn't matter if we're the hero or an actual villain. We're always going to come last by comparison to any white folks.
That's why it blows my mind.
No matter how bad of a thing that they did or how many horrible things that they have done. The fact that now that anybody running as a Dem or Republican in a national election in this country is the worst kind of person. But if you're comparing a lot of these folks like DeSantis and Gilliam in Florida, like, are you serious? Like, if you had to pick between the two, that's a no-brainer. I mean, for goodness sake. Abram, I can't even remember the guy's name in Georgia. Another white supremacist versus a black woman, and there's an actual at least close to a dead heat there. So we're actually having an argument with another group of people, well, white folks, that no. This one guy and this black person, yeah, you know, we can actually have a debate on who's worse. When there's a difference between, you know, if you're talking about Hillary and Trump or something, versus something like this. If it's that blatant, I mean, there should not be a discussion.
I mean, these people are true racists, but that's where the whitewashing comes in, Nolan. I mean, you hear these people like, oh, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. Colin Kaepernick, he's so evil. And then right after, in the same breath, they're like, why can't they be more like Dr. Martin Luther King?
Yeah. In actuality, they were like Martin Luther King. Just like that's the reason why they dislike Martin Luther King. But that you're right. That's the whitewashing and the continued indoctrination of this society, and that goes to Europe, it goes to Canada, it goes to South America, Australia, even Africa. Glenn was talking before the show about how Liberia, which is an African country, prints stamps with Jefferson and Washington on it, the founding fathers of the United States, slave owners, enactors of mass genocide against black and native people. So I know there's an African country honoring these people, but there's that indoctrination and whitewashing. The fact that we are supporting any of these people who run in these elections is just asinine. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you have a conscience, why are you supporting any of these people? It's one thing to vote. I mean, vote for whoever you want. Lesser of two evils. If you want to go that route, fine. But supporting any of these people, I mean, for goodness sake, they are contributing to mass oppression, and it's just continued indoctrination, continued whitewashing, and that's why we have white terrorists all over the country. It's never not been a thing. I mean, talking about whitewashing within whitewashing, people have pretended that Trump invented racism and white terrorism. He just gave them more license to come out of the closet. I mean, this is back in the mid-90s. It came out that the FBI and other forms of law enforcement in the country had Klansmen and folks going to Klan meetings and neo-Nazi meetings. It's the FBI, for goodness sake. Of course, again, the FBI killed Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and others. And flash forward 2018, protect Mueller. Protect Robert Mueller. He was the head of a terrorist organization, the FBI. Of course you can't go after these white terrorists, these civilians, and killing a bunch of people. If you're going to glamorize and put on a pedestal people like Robert Mueller and James Comey, well, of course we're not going to be able to stop the problem of white terrorism. If we're glorifying it every 5 minutes. We still have Columbus Day, President's Day, you name it.
Yeah, you're moving toward the next topic a little. But real quick, I was going to ask this, everyone's making this, oh, that's so horrible, he was a veteran, and this, and I mean, that to me, these people train them to kill. They send them out to kill people, and then they come back and they go crazy and kill people. What'd you think was going to happen? I mean, and if it wasn't this, you have some cop looking at people like insurgents killing people of a darker complexion of himself, or maybe even the same complexion. It's sickening. The military creates these things these people that go out there and do these terrible things on a lot of cases. I mean, so many different times people have military training or are ex-military or veterans or whatever. I think the answer to that isn't to get them mental health care. I think is to stop sending people to BS wars for no reason.
I think it's both. And until you actually defund the military complex and rip the system to shreds, you got to get these folks coming back from wars. Mental health.
Why did you say that wasn't? I didn't say don't do that. I said that's not the answer. The answer is to stop sending people to wars. There's no reason for these people. I mean, there's no more drafts. So when you're going to war, you're going there. I mean, even during the draft, I guess, too. But, I mean, now you're going on purpose. You're being lied to by a recruiter or whatever the reason, or you need money or you need college or something. And then they send you...
stay out of jail.
Or whatever. But they send you overseas to do the bidding of these corporations and politicians. And it's ridiculous. What do we get out of it? We don't get anything. You're not doing anything for our freedom or for our people here. You're just going and invading stuff and robbing countries and doing terrible things for profit and gain of these corporations, defense contractors, and politicians. And that's got to stop. Just yesterday or today, maybe, Trump says, I'll never forgive Obama for not funding the military. First of all, he funded the crap out the military.
Okay.
Second of all, Trump's funding them more. I mean, because he sees that as his little... he doesn't understand how it works. He says that is his personal army. He can do with them what he wants. The people,
Zig Heil.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous, man.
My army. Oh yeah.
Well, he wants to be dictator. He's gonna either try or at least talk about how he wants to be dictator.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, this isn't like Franco dictator. This is like Napoleon dictator talk.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'm glad that this has stayed out of the American semi-consciousness, but rest assured, there are a lot of people in the American military. I'm not going to talk about why they're there or how they got there, but it is their life. And for them to sit there and look at this senile megalomaniac 70-some-year-old fucktard and him to say that we work for you, I don't think so. I mean, I think as far as I'm concerned about funding the U.S. military, fuck, increase it 20% a year. Who cares? It just brings it that much closer to complete collapse. And they're nowhere near automation to actually get stuff done. It's just tools right now. They're aids to the machine of war. They still need people. And if they keep building all this shit, there's not going to be any people left. Because like you said, Tim, there's no draft, which, amazingly Nixon got rid of that, but there's no draft, but there are fewer and fewer people turning that way generation by generation. And yet the machinery of war basically doubles every 20 years.
Yeah, but
it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. It's just the military, by continuing to beat off with the military in D.C., is the quickest way to end the American empire.
Yeah, but being from Los Angeles here, like me and Nolan are, is scary because the more they fund the military, the more they get new things. Their old things end up in police stations on our streets, and it's
that's because when the time comes to pawn them off to law enforcement, they're still not paid for.
Well, then you talk about the national debt. I mean, and I guess I could boost your argument at the same time, Glenn. You keep adding on to the debt. Eventually, the economy is going to collapse. The other side of that, to add on to Tim's point, Obama was doing the same thing, adding to the nuclear warfare, refurbishing weapons, adding new nuclear weapons technology. Trump wants even more weapons, just like with the deportations, just like with the funding of the military at large. He wants to, up that by a big margin. And you're talking about a possible war with just multiple countries. We almost had a war, at least he had a threat of a war with North Korea, Russia, Iran. He's given them sanctions, even though, for goodness sake, America overthrew the democracy in the first place in Iraq more than a half a century ago. So you're really getting closer, and I don't know how much closer or how close to that line. I'm not a nuclear expert, but you're making things more palpable in terms of the instability of foreign relations with other countries. And as time has gone on, other countries have grown to dislike America more and more and more and more. So that, I don't like war. I'm not a big fan of violence. I wish the military would be basically put on hold for a few days or a few weeks and figure out, okay, defund everything for a second, and then let's put this to a reasonable degree. Like, obviously you got to have a military, but let's cut this down big time. But I do get the point that
they need to protect us, though. If they're going to be here, they need to sit here until they're needed. If no one's attacking us, they're not needed. Then maybe they can go do some humanitarian things. Go help people for once instead of murdering and slaughtering people.
Even when America is attacked, the parties that are responsible are so often led astray. And pals, the allies, the
Saudis.
The Saudis. I remember I was probably about 10 years old, 11 years old. The American embassy in Kenya got bombed. Anybody who was an adult and knew anything about foreign policy knew Osama bin Laden was behind it, and yet Clinton was asleep at the wheel. I think he tried one airstrike, and that was it. And Osama got better and better and better at hiding, and it took another 13 years, 12 years after that, 10 years, something like that, to actually get a hold of him. So, 9/11 happens. The Saudis may have been involved. It looks like they were involved. Why aren't you going after them? You're letting bin Laden's family go wherever they want. So even that whole shtick of protecting the country is gobbledygook. It's BS. And what do you hear from most Americans, especially white folks? Well, I support the military because they're protecting us. It's a completely robotic response from the American populace.
The problem is they don't understand what that means anymore.
Yeah.
There was a time when they said the nation, they meant the nation. Now when they say the nation, it means the oligarchy.
Well, and even in the past, you can make the point that there were many times where America had no use to be protected in a certain situation. Vietnam, Korea. Even with World War II, the way countries and figureheads put their countries in that war, America didn't get into the war until it was attacked.
Directly.
Directly attacked Pearl Harbor. They didn't care about the people in the camps in Nazi Germany at all. They had knowledge of that beforehand. They could have jumped in there, So this is what this country is like. Taking Mexico. You're not at risk. You just want more land. Yeah,
Laden's
Afghanistan. Yeah, well, speaking of Nazi Germany, yeah, the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, you don't need to be in there. If you're really serious, okay, go get Bin Laden, go get your figureheads of Al Qaeda and the Taliban, and get on with your lives. It does not take 15 years to do that.
Well, no. But
20 years off and on with the Iraq wars.
But the world heroin market doesn't go away. It's always there.
There you go.
So, and plus rare earth metals. I mean, China right now produces over 90% of rare earth metals in the world. Well, there's a huge deposit in Afghanistan that people have been fighting over for, since 1979.
Yeah.
And, but you have to sell it. Sell them as a threat to the quote-unquote country.
Well, you could trace that back all the way to the end of feudalism and the white man's need for capitalism.
I just want to.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to say that the end of World War II should have proven to everybody that there is no progress, because before Nazi Germany was even dead, there were counter operations to try and prevent the Russians from getting to Berlin before the Americans. There's a lot of people that say Truman dropped the atomic bombs just to show Uncle Joe what's up. I mean, before a war is even over, they're planning for the next fucking war.
Yeah.
And that's human nature, unfortunately, because not only are there the psychopaths that rise to the decision process, but there's also the vast, overwhelming majority who just lets it happen. That's what we are.
That's the United States, and then of course you have Nazi Germany to a T, letting things happen.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, you can take that lack of need for warfare and violence back to the end of feudalism and the beginning of capitalism. Native folks in North and South America weren't doing anything to anybody. Black folks in Africa and Muslims on the top, Arabs, excuse me. We weren't doing anything to anybody. So why are you coming in here pointing guns at us? Well, because there's some resources on these two sides of the world that the white folks want, and that has not stopped. And both of those land masses, if you talk about the Panama Canal, North and South America and Africa, are still being exploited to this day. If you have an iPhone, you are benefiting from very close to slave labor of very young black males working in horrible conditions for the mineral cobalt. And cobalt is a mineral that helps make iPhones. So it continues and continues, and we, in terms of any type of majority, we have failed to admit what the problem is. The problem, you're talking about whiteness, you're talking about to paraphrase my ancestors of the 50s and 60s, the white power structure. And even someone like Bill O'Reilly, I remember he had John McCain on his show years back, and he says, John, you know what they're doing. You know what they're doing. And John listens intently. John, they're trying to tear down the white male Christian power structure. So he admits to the entire world, it's a thing. This is a real thing. White power structure, white male Christian power structure. And of course, it's on Fox News, so everybody watching, if they admit it's a thing they want. It's not a thing that they are
it works for them
to or have a problem with. It works for them in spades, exactly. So, we're still here, 2018, 500 plus years after starting of slavery and native genocide, and the two things haven't stopped, and we're still having domestic terrorists who are white men coming into churches or movie theaters or schools. I mean, geez,
or bars.
Or bar. Well, now a bar. And I mean, I've had family in Thousand Oaks. I remember going to Thousand Oaks when I was younger.
I used to work in Thousand Oaks every day.
Yeah, this is if you're in LA, it's in the LA area. You know, this is if you're not going to admit what the problem is, the problem's not going to stop. If you have a outbreak of an infectious disease, and no one is trying to figure out a cure, let alone admitting what the disease is, well, of course, everyone's going to keep being sick. So if this whiteness, this white supremacy, this white power structure, this white greed, if no one's going to talk about it, we're not going to admit what it is, well, everyone's going to keep being sick. And that includes my own people. I mean, why in the world is capitalism being practiced in Africa? Why are we speaking English, French, and Portuguese in Africa and, well, also in Brazil? I mean, for goodness sake, there are more black people in Brazil than there are in all but 2 African countries. It'd be the third biggest black population if it was an African country. So this is how far this goes, and that's step one. When you have a problem, you admit what the problem is. So that's how we solve this problem of white terrorism.
The thing about go ahead, Glenn. Sorry.
I was just going to say, but when it's not good for business, then you don't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got to probably move on to the next one soon. But the thing about the white Christian, quote unquote, genocide or whatever they're calling it, the Bible talks about thousands and thousands of people, and not one of them is white. So I don't know where they get that from.
Well, they throughout time, whatever you believe in, there have been countless references to Africa taken out. I'm not a biblical scholar or pretend to be, but I'm just making a very easy deduction here. You can make a legitimate argument that Jesus was born in Africa because there is a Nazareth in Ethiopia, city of Nazareth in Ethiopia. Of course, that has not been taught to anybody reading the Bible, in Norway or the United States or Canada. So this is how this continues. You keep telling lies to your kids. You're going to have kids. For goodness sake, it was an 8th grade black girl in I think it was Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago. White kid just burned her hair, tried to burn her hair off, and a bunch of white kids were laughing at her. And they were both on their way to school. So this is why these things continue. This is why we keep having Lindsey Grahams or Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clintons or even your sellouts of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Barack Obama, blah, 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 blah. So we have to admit what the problem is, for goodness sake.
Yeah. So let's go through this next one. We already kind of touched on it a little bit. Trump forced Jeffery Beauregard Sessions to resign for very obvious reasons, and almost immediately the liberals took to the streets, started protesting the firing of a racist to save the job of a fascist FBI agent.
Well, this is a condition of a fascist state because all those things don't matter at the moment because there's something bigger involved. That's how fucked up stuff is. You know? The entire issue is this is exactly what Nixon tried to do over Watergate. It's the same script. Fire everybody who won't do what I want.
Just over a longer period of time, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, a little bit, but not extremely. And the issue now is beyond, well, I mean, it's about power. So, of course, it's more important than the American public. Come on.
Yeah, but I'm watching the... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Glenn. I was just going to say something crazy.
No, I was just going to say that those questions, you can't do anything about that now. You can't change who Sessions is. You can't change that he got the job. You can't change that what Mueller had overseen in the past. You can't change any of that. But the real danger is what Trump is trying to set up. And everything I've read so far is this this good old boy he's put in as temporary attorney general, that's an illegal appointment. So
Yeah.
if he starts firing people, then you got to go through all that bullshit. Are they fired or are they not fired? You know, it's all about just bogging everything down.
Yeah,
and it will.
Yeah, it will. It has been too. But the thing is, I'm watching these Democratic, like news media things. You know, these different independent, Democratic leaning shows, and you know, when Sessions was getting confirmed, they're like, he's a racist, he's a Klansman, he's this, and telling the truth about him. Then all of a sudden, now they're like, he's not a great person, but he did his job really good, and he did the right thing, and you know, they're hailing him now as almost like a little mini hero, like an anti-hero or something. It's like, come on, he's a Klansman. He said the only reason he hates the KKK, the only reason he was disappointed in the KKK is because he found out someone smoked weed. Come on, man.
Yeah, but see, in the here and now, none of that matters.
It really
because
does.
The truth is, when Sessions recused himself from the Mueller investigation, it shocked the shit out of me. And yes, it was the best thing he could do for self-preservation, but it also sent the biggest message. He was not going to let Trump stick his hand up his ass and talk for him like a puppet.
Yeah.
I mean, that was...
Still doesn't make him a hero, sorry.
No, it doesn't make him a hero, but the Mueller investigation could have been squashed before it got anything done if Sessions had not done that. So I think it proves the old story about the biggest asshole in the world can do the right thing if it benefits him.
Of course. Saved his own skin.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
And now Sessions paid for it. You know, I mean, when we know what's going to happen. The House is Democratic. All the committee heads are changing. Here we come, Donnie. Fucking strap on. So that's it. He had to pull the trigger. He has to try and end that Mueller investigation now.
Well, and to Tim's point, these are. I'm quoting Elizabeth Warren directly. This is her in June of 2017. As our top law enforcement officer, the Attorney General must be truthful and uphold the law. Sessions cannot continue to serve. He should resign. End quote. This is her this week. Donald Trump's firing of Jeff Sessions brings us one step closer to a constitutional crisis. Congress must act to ensure that Special Counsel Mueller can do his job without interference. End quote. That's the same person within a year.
But they're both true statements at different points in time.
They are, but that's true to the point that if you're the Attorney General of a nation, obviously you should be truthful. And if you have Jeff Sessions as your Attorney General, yeah, he should resign. He shouldn't have got the job. He should get fired. And yes, you should not be able to fire someone just because you're in the midst of a criminal investigation and he sold you out. But at the same time, she's okay with it one minute and she's not okay with it the next because it doesn't serve her party. It has nothing to do with her constituents in Massachusetts. It has nothing to do with anybody who needs help. It just has to do with, we got to protect the liberals, we protect the Democrats. We don't like Donald Trump. It's all about Donald and getting him out and letting President Pence come in.
Because Pence will do more things that are like just exactly what the Democrats would do in a lot of ways. He'll do things they wouldn't do too.
As far as being more using more critical thinking, not doing things that would put the country in harm's way as far as its national security. With if you're talking about cyber terrorism, you're talking about adding to you're taking away from any cachet you had that it's not a racist nation, that it accepts everybody from all walks of life, shattering that myth. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
Well, I mean, Pence is for the Republicans, and of course the other ones are for the Democrats, Pelosi, Warren, or whatever. But they all have a lot of common goals. Like you know, maybe he won't go crazy with the immigration. He'll just keep doing it like the Democrats were, plus a little bit, But Trump is about Trump. He's not really caring about Democrats, Republicans, the country, the people. He's all about himself. And I think that's the thing. He doesn't suit either party really. Like, he puts himself above them, and they want somebody that's going to play within their little party games. Trump wants to be king.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference.
I think he's, in that aspect, he's the anti-George Washington, because as disgusting of a human being, as bad of a human as ever lived on this planet as George Washington was, he said, "No, I don't want the kingship. I'll be president or something, but I'm not going to be continuing a monarchy here." So he's the anti-George Washington as far as, I want to be king or dictator or Führer or whatever. This is the same guy who his ex-wife said that had a copy of Mein Kampf by his bedstand, his nightstand. On his nightstand.
He also had P.T. Barnum's writings. Put those two together, and that's what you get is Trump, I think.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think the only issue where I agree with what Tim said, Trump just refuses to play by the established rules, and that will be what costs him when the time is right. But if Trump wasn't such a douchebag outsider, if Trump was a 40-year senator, he might be able to get away with it and survive. You know what I mean? It's just that he's not the right guy to get carte blanche from the political elite. He's just not the right guy. He hasn't earned it. He hasn't put in his time.
Well, I think also, I kind of made this point a second ago, but because he's so incompetent, he scares the hell out of anybody who's worked in Washington for more than 10 minutes. And he is putting the structure of the nation at risk.
Yep.
Which, to someone like me, you, or Tim, at least from that standpoint, good. Let's have this thing fall, and let's have everybody be free and treat everybody the same. But as far as being a senator or a congressperson, well, geez, we don't want that. We don't want the outside world to be any more upset with us than they already are. It's hard enough to do foreign policy. Especially if you're talking about nations in the Middle East, for example, when you're bombing them every 5 seconds. But now you're outwardly you're saying, hey, you're less than human. You come from a quote unquote shithole country. It makes it a lot harder to do your business when you have that guy leading it. That's why if you see a company, a well-known company, or a well-known company in your own city, and you have someone like Trump, at least in terms of the incompetence and without the filter coming out of his mouth. Well, yeah, they're probably there are people that are probably going to try to get him out of his position and try to get a new leader, a new president, CEO, etc.
A new front.
New front.
Because, I just thought of it when you're saying that. It's like, I'd like to know how many fewer international contracts Coca-Cola and PepsiCo have gotten, on a yearly average in the last 2 years. I wonder how many government contracts IBM got in the last 2 years around the world as compared to when Obama was in office.
Especially because Trump has started a trade war with a bunch of different countries.
Everybody.
Yeah. So we're not going to let you have American products unless you pay a ridiculous amount of money.
Or you surrender your market, or we're not going to buy your widget.
Yeah.
And that's 18th century trade practice.
Oh, yeah. And that's the fun. That's you go back to apathy of America.
Yeah.
Look at France. The people were like, all right, we're done. No, y'all, we're taking you out. This is ridiculous. You're taking all our money. You're doing whatever you want. You're putting. Most of us are poor. We're done with you. That's how the French Revolution happened. Russia. That's how the Russia. No. Czars. We're done with this. And America. No. We're okay. We're okay. And things. Look, there has never been, contrary to popular belief, there's never been a good year in the history of the United States. But we're getting, at least in terms of how successful the country is in terms of its own genocidal goals and its goals of oppression and greed, we're getting closer and closer to endgame. And you've said it a lot, even on this particular episode. We said it a lot on the show, Glenn. So, yeah, people like Elizabeth Warren could be upset about that because they can't have this six-figure job where they can exploit people. In her case, pretend to be a whole different race and lie to her constituents about how she's helping all these different people. You can't have someone like Lindsey Graham or Marco Rubio lie to his lie to their constituents, saying, "No, I'm going to fight for you, you poor white folks. It's all these different people trying to take your money and take your jobs. I got you." And even within that ridiculous line, no, you're still not going to help those folks. So it makes business a lot harder when you have someone like Trump in office. When you have someone like, Clinton, Obama, an FDR, Lincoln, very intelligent people, horrible people, but very intelligent, shrewd people, makes it a lot easier.
Even W. He wasn't smart, but he knew how the game worked.
Yeah, well, and he really had someone who really knew how the game works and changed it. They're making a movie about it, Vice. I'm looking forward to see that.
Daddy helped write the fucking book on how the game worked.
They're shrewd. Daddy, Bush one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's shrewd right there. I'm amazed he didn't get 8 years.
So, I mean, when you look at it that way, the bar is amazingly low for you to be approved to be the president of the United States. You just have to
be reasonable.
You have to do what the game tells you to do.
Within the realm of lacking reason. Within that realm, be reasonable.
Well, I mean that's like a tagline. Be reasonable. It doesn't mean that, but that's the tagline. Exactly. Be reasonable. What it means is shut the fuck up and give us what we want. And
I'll give him credit for the line when Trump said, I could shoot somebody and you'd still vote for me. Well, goodness gracious, he's done just about everything but that. And he has a higher approval rating than Obama did at this time during Obama's presidency, which is absolutely ridiculous.
If you think about it, right now he's got people that will vote for him and then go shoot some people. So it works out.
Shoot people who maybe won't vote for me.
Yeah, exactly. Since go ahead, Glenn, sorry.
No, there's just one more thing I want to say about this. That's all fine and well and whatever, but I can remember when the United States used to give a fuck about the West, the way it was perceived in the rest of the world, especially its allies. That's gone. It's completely gone. The entire world says Trump is a fucking idiot. And nobody cares.
Britain doesn't even want to do business with the United States. They're boycotting Trump. The Great Britain boycotts Trump. They don't want him to enter the country. Your own mama doesn't want you to come in the country. I mean that says a lot. Without the UK, there is no United States, and even the UK doesn't want Trump. And Theresa May is a horrible human being, horrible bigot and racist, and she calls him out. That tells you a lot.
Yeah, but that's bordering into marketing because he's a poison brand. You just simply don't tie to him. Exactly. But I mean, even countries like Canada. I mean, we refused to send troops to Iraq. There have been U.S. presidents that have been very unpopular in Canada, but I would say nobody ever broke 65% disapprove before Trump. And I've seen some polls that are 90% disapprove. That's in Canada.
I mean, he called all the Canadian people weak and dishonest, talking about Trudeau, and then he's like, the Canadians are weak and dishonest. He didn't call y'all shoe thieves. I know I joke about it a lot, but that's some crazy stuff.
Yeah, but you don't get it, man. I mean, Pierre Trudeau said it best. Having that massively long border we have with the United States is like sleeping with an elephant. Every time they move, you got to jump. That's just the reality of it. And as far as American government dissing Canada, it's like, yeah, well, what's their problem today? You know, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt at all. You want to piss us off? Say that you make better hockey players. Then you're in for a fucking fight. You know?
Your maple syrup ain't got nothing on ours.
Well, you know? I think that the reverse effect of that is when he says something like that about Mexico, then it causes problems because of the color difference. And you're sending your worst, you're sending rapists, you're sending killers.
Yeah, that's true. He has never said that about Canadians. And I'm sure he would get a similar reaction because that's just beyond. Well,
Canadians aren't as dark generally as the people south of the border that he hates. I mean, he's a racist. He's a white. He's an admitted white nationalist.
Well, I think part of the problem is too that Mexico is an actual big country with a lot of people. So I mean, there's a whole different play. Why would he waste all that venom on Canada? There's nobody up here anyway.
Well, you know? that, and again, the color difference. If it was like the way it used to be, and still should be, if Native people were in charge of Canada and it was called Canada, he would say the same thing. It's just he's not going to say that about a white nation. He said disparaging things about other white nations, but he's never called them shithole countries.
Yeah,
countries true. In Africa. Yeah, of course he said that about countries in Africa. And then that goes back to the last topic. I don't know what topic we're on now, but just in terms of the white terrorism, that was the last topic. That goes to the whole white terrorism thing. If we're not going to call a spade, then we're going to have problems. I mean, there are people in Congress who won't call him racist, let alone a predator or a sexist or anything else.
There's people that won't even call him a liar. They'll say he tells untruths. That's how crazy it is. But yeah, let's since we're on the Trump thing, let's move on to the next one because it's kind of related. Trump seems to be stepping up his anti-press game, sticking to his guns, calling the press the enemy of the people. Now he's getting even more argumentative with the press than ever, even revoking some press passes and threatening to revoke more.
Well, as seems to be a pattern, these guys have a game plan, but they don't have the skills to pull it off correctly. When you have a minister of propaganda and enlightenment, when you have a White House press secretary who produces video to the media, and it's been doctored.
It was doctored by that Paul Joseph Watson white supremacist dude, by the way, from InfoWars, just so everybody knows. That's where she got it.
Prison Planet, isn't that the goof?
Yeah, whatever he is. Wasn't he info? I don't know who he is. I think he's a white supremacist.
When the White House is trying to pass off bogus evidence, this tells you where they are. Like, they jumped the shark. And the only factor now will be if the media finally does what they should have done a long time ago, and they just say, fuck you. We're all going to stand up and yell at you. Kick us all out. That's what they should have done 18 months ago. But they didn't because money. Right? So if he's going to choke them off from that source of money, then they will finally start to attack him all day long. But until then, it's just a sideshow, really. I mean, he can say all he wants, and we'll see what CNN does. But Acosta was chosen to be the one to fill that role for whatever game they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, CNN benefits from this as well. Don't think they don't.
They had Corey Lewandowski.
Oh, God, I don't know.
On their network during the election. The man worked for Trump. He was the campaign manager, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but how many viewers did they snipe from Fox for doing it? That's why they do it. They don't do it for good content.
Oh, I mean, good content. I don't know if you've ever been able to say it about CNN.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
I mean, this is another disease or another symptom of the disease. Like, this has happened in Canada in the last 10 years. I remember when you would watch an election night or some political discussion show, it was like all these Quimbies who knew what the fuck they were talking about. You know? They could all put you to bed if you weren't interested. They all kind of looked the same. They all had the same quirks and the same tailor, but they knew what the fuck they were talking about. Now it's about having quasi-celebrities on. It's not about informing people. It's about getting people to be on your station so we can get that data transmitted back, how many viewers we have, and we can up our advertising rates. That's what it's become.
Well, yeah, that's one reason why I got elected too. Not to, whether it was their intention or not. I don't think it was them. And no one was an MSNBC's intention. But all you have to do is just watch last week tonight, all throughout the election. You thought the only topic was Trump half the time. If you're gonna, what's the old adage? There is no such thing as bad press. There's no such thing as bad press. Well, geez. If this one guy gets that much airtime versus everybody else during the primaries, of course he's going to have an unfair advantage.
You know, like a year ago or something, we were saying on this very show, why does the media just stop reporting on Trump? Like that's what he wants. Just don't give it to him. Just stop. It's just, if they're lying to the people, why bother? Just have a White House press conference where no one shows up. That'll teach him the lesson. And everyone's like, no, that's crazy. Now some genius guy who's a book writer, some author of some book put it out and said, if they would just, I think he's a psychologist or something, if they would just stop reporting everything he says and just throw it in the comics section is from the White House today. We were saying this a year ago, you know what I mean? Now, and nobody's going to do it even if the smart guy says it. It's ridiculous. Not that you're not smart. I was talking about me, pretty much, Glenn. But no, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Why do they have to go sit there and be lied to, and then argue about the lies later? You know you're going to get lied to. Why show up? Why bother? It doesn't even make sense.
Because it pays their mortgage. That's why.
Sanders people should be in front of an empty room. Sorry, go ahead. Of
course. Same with Spicer. There's a reason why this is an election where more people voted. It had nothing, well, as far as the majority goes, it had nothing to do with Black Lives Mattering. It had nothing to do with missing and murdered indigenous women. Had nothing to do with any of that. We got to stop this one guy or help this one guy. This one guy, he's so lively and fun and ridiculous. I mean, we watched him on television before with The Apprentice. I mean, he's been on our favorite TV shows like The Fresh Prince. Had nothing to do with any kind of giving help to people in need or making things more equal. It had to do with this one guy. And I remember, to a degree, because I was a kid, when George W. Bush was in office, the media wasn't like this. For one, W didn't challenge the media like Trump does. Trump, you're fake news, you're lying. And how fickle Americans are, a lot of them buy into what Trump's saying. Oh, well, we can't trust anything main outlets or what other people are saying about him because everything's fake news. Yet when things got reported about George W. Bush, people took it much more often. They took it at face value. The war in Iraq. Yeah, people hated the war in Iraq. There were protests over the war in Iraq. Versus we're still in Iraq.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Obama changed. Right. He pulled us out and he shut down Guantanamo. He kept all his promises because he was the greatest president and the most honest of all time.
Right. Well, we have all these different wars and extra wars, and obviously not just because of Trump, but if we're going to say the border problem, putting troops at the border, putting more barbed wire up. Let's have a little more empathy, a little more care for folks. But of course, that has been what the majority has thought. Lacking empathy for others, especially people of color. But the common denominator is, do we care about politics right now or not? Well, okay, a black man's running, so we care, right or wrong, or left or right. Oh, well, Trump's running. This is fun, or Trump's minions are running. A lot of, when you, just speaking off when I was a kid, or people just who don't really like politics. When you look at American politics, the first thing you think about is the U.S. the U.S. presidential election. You don't really know or understand or think about the fact that it helps that president in terms of the power that they have if he has the Congress in his pocket in terms of which party controls the House and or the Senate. So more people cared about that and actually tried to understand that this time around. It's the Trump factor, and there's a lot of different areas of politics and just life in general in this country where that Trump factor really means something, and this election showed that.
Did you guys happen to see any of the mainstream press coverage on election day? They had these elaborate giant sets with all kinds of people lined up, lighting, colors, giant screens behind them. Then they had these blocks on the bottom. It looked like a John Madden game or a wrestling game or something. You'll throw the two people up on the screen together, the red and blue, and this one's by this percent, this back and forth, and everyone's talking and going to this person. It was insane. How much money did they spend? It's like it looked like a football. I'm not, me in sports, but I'm saying it looked like some sporting event or something.
It's a game. It's a game.
It was insane.
We're going to talk about Tucker Carlson in a second. Tucker Carlson gave Rachel Maddow her first on-air job on MSNBC. And if you talk to any liberal, oh my gosh, I love Maddow, I love Rachel Maddow, I love her so much, she cares about everybody. Bullshit. This is a game to them. My life is a game to them. My people's lives are a game to someone like Maddow or Carlson or Blitzer or you name it. Even Van Jones, for goodness sake. So you talking about an election? It's red versus blue. Again, it had nothing to do with Black Lives Mattering. It had nothing to do with missing or murdered Indigenous women. It had nothing to do with Native kids being stolen and put in tent cities. It had nothing to do with any of that. It's red versus blue. It's the Trump factor. Wow, how exciting this is. We have a clown as president. This is kind of fun. And let's all tune into the car crash.
It's a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I noticed this because I used to watch the Young Turks sometimes, and then they said they were the home of the revolution. Well, going in for Democrats all the time. And I'm glad they changed it to home of progressives because there's nothing revolution about them, as we said before. But you notice when these cats get money from a Republican or a Democrat, all of a sudden they're like, I'm on that team. I'm going to go 1,000 times out for this. I'm going to say anything they want me to say. I'll alter my views. I'll do anything. I'll totally sell out for this because they're the ones paying me, or they're the ones promoting me or supporting me. They're all in this together.
It's called a contract.
Yeah. Well, this is again anybody who runs for office, Dem or Republican, trying to get a national seat, but this is driving me nuts. Whether you believe that Sharice Davis and Deb Haaland are the first Native women to get into Congress or not, you're talking about horrible people here. Okay, Davids took money from Wells Fargo. Now, the last I checked, the Dakota Access Pipeline was a bad thing. That's just the last time I checked. That was a bad thing. Black people being thrown into private prisons every 5 seconds is a bad thing. Black people being fired from Wells Fargo because they're black, that's a bad thing. Yet to Miss Davids, it's fine. Nothing wrong with any of that. Yet these two women are being praised, just like Obama was, simply because of their race. And sadly,
politics.
That is U.S. politics, and it leaks into communities of colors, and we buy into it. I mean, I remember when Obama ran, oh my gosh, and I bought into it. I was 21 at the time. 20. Yeah, 21. Okay. I was like, okay, we're finally getting somewhere. All right, we're going to actually, get the movement going again. Things are going to be okay. He's got our back. Now, if I had known anything about Obama, I wouldn't have said any of that. The same guy who, on one of the debates, said, black people don't deserve reparations, but the Jewish folks do in the Holocaust, even though there were black people in the Holocaust too, but they don't deserve any. Black people, no.
Okay.
No rhyme. So,
okay, but
go ahead.
But would you have rather had Romney?
No.
Or McCain?
But there's a key difference. People within the society, we have a tendency to go to one extreme or the other. There's a medium here. There's a difference between voting and supporting. Like yes. I said before, earlier on the show, and I'm going to use the arguably the most polarizing presidential election in recent U.S. history: Hillary versus Trump. If you voted for Hillary or Trump, I will not automatically go, geez, what did you do? Because either way, you're voting for a giant white supremacist. Okay. Now, if you support one of those people, get the hell away from me and don't look me in the eye. There's a key difference. Now, if I lived in Howland's district or Gilliam State, Andrew Gilliam, or Stacey Abrams State, or Sharice David's State, and I had voted, I'd vote for all those people. But I wouldn't support any of them for a second because they believe and are fighting for our demise. They are on the other team. And if we're just going to call it a game, if you put this into a game mode, they have signed with the other team to hurt us. Even though these people, if you're black or native, these people are supposed to be on our team, and obviously we're born. They're black. They are black or native, whether they like it or not. So it is just the way it is. This is a game to these people, whether it's the politicians, whether it's the people who cover the politicians, and even the journalists, and I should say the writers, the newspapers and online publications. Most of them, it's a game to them too. Because they will, even in opinion pieces, they'll go, well, whether you believe in this issue or you're against it, and it's something like the straight out argument, well, should you say Black Lives Matter? Do Black Lives Matter? Like, for goodness sake, that's right versus wrong. We're not talking about a flat tax or how much money a school system should get. There's no opinion to be had here. This is right versus wrong. And again, this is a game to these people. So that's why. And I have not watched election coverage I can't remember because I'm going to throw the TV out the window. But that's why you see it presented like a game, not like, oh, wait, lives are on the line. I mean, this is when people, especially, and look, we've all been called angry, but especially if you're talking about colored folks or black or native folks, especially women of color. That's why we get called angry, because geez, you care too much. Well, this is life, literal life and death. That's why we care a lot. You're not angry enough. That's the problem. So it's a game to you. It's our lives on the line to us. That's the difference.
Yeah, well, what I would say is, when those people say that it's not part of the overall society, it's part of their society, which happens a lot over a lot of different issues, then you just got to wish on dear Cletus that maybe his sisters start disappearing and his mothers start disappearing. And we'd see a whole different priority list pretty quick, I think.
We would. The problem is we would not be involved. And I'll give you two examples. The opium epidemic, because for one, black people of color have been caught up in that as well. But the only time the Trump administration said anything about it was, all these white kids are dying, so now we care about it.
Suburban white kids, whose parents vote for Trump.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The crack epidemic that we enforced on black folks, the drug epidemic and alcohol epidemic in the Native communities that we forced on them, that we still force on them, and then the Holocaust. The Holocaust is the only, I've said this 100 times on many different shows, including this one, probably more than any other show. The Holocaust is the only genocide Western society recognizes as a genocide. And even within that point, everybody else who wasn't Jewish, we're going to forget about them. Black people included. Black people were the top, number one, numero uno target of Hitler's sterilization program. Number one target of a sterilization program, okay? And yet, if you asked anybody on the street, so you've heard about black people being the Holocaust, right? Huh? What are you talking about? That's anti-Semitic. That
must be.
I'm just saying that we were there too. I'm not saying your plight doesn't matter, for this sake.
That must be one of the few people who missed our shows.
Exactly. That sums it up perfectly. So even within these tragedies and oppressions of poor people, Jewish people, whomever, the people who get left out to dry, even within those situations, are the people of color or people who don't fit in to any kind of position of privilege. So that you can include straight folks or cisgendered folks, able-bodied folks, men in those conversations as well. So that's and of course, whiteness being the common denominator. So often here, North and South America, and in Africa over the last 500 plus years, we have tried to drive out the oppressors, white folks, and just try to build everything back up again. And every time we try to do that, our legs get taken off us again. I mean, you could talk about the Cherokee Nation. You could talk about South Africa. You could talk about Ethiopia. I mean, for goodness sake, this has been Libya right now. So this is it's a game. It is a game. That's why studies have been done and proven that the white folks actually have less empathy for people of color than they do their own people. And then the same test, you look at black folks, they're human. I care about them the same. It's I guess the theme of the show today is whiteness.
It's the theme of the country.
Oh, well, there you go.
And most of the world. Unfortunately.
It's run by, yeah.
Yeah. I was just real quick looking at the trends on Twitter to see if Donnie Jr. or Kushner got arrested. I don't see anything about that or indicted yet. Number one's California fires, and they're going on. We're just not talking. What is there to talk about? There's fires going on. I could look out to the when I look outside to the northwest a little, I see a ton of smoke. But yeah, I guess we're gonna move on to the next subject if you guys are done with this right now.
And I think it ties in perfectly. We're talking about the media.
Speaking of whiteness,
yeah.
A small group of protesters showed up at the house of Tucker Carlson, made some noise, and banged on his door, begging the question, is Tucker Carlson the most persecuted guy in history?
Well, if you're thinking, well, I'll use the word again. If you're thinking with whiteness, he's up there. At least for the last 5 minutes, because that's how short the attention span is in this within that line of thinking. How dare he just have an opinion on the TV and then be shamed for it?
No, I've said this. I've been screaming this on Twitter, sometimes in caps. People don't seem to understand. Tucker Carlson is responsible for some of these terror attacks. Directly responsible for Charlottesville. He was the one, his Daily Caller and Fox News were the ones putting out that little funny comedy video about how you should do ISIS-style attacks on protesters with the funny music and the cars running through people. And then they mysteriously took him down really quick right after Charlottesville. He's a horrible person. Mm-hmm. Like, boycott Swanson TV dinners. Let's take some of his money from him, but he still has Fox News. It's crazy, man. This dude, then he starts off with, before you call me a bigot, let me say this and that. You're a bigot. There's nothing, if you have to start a sentence with, before you call me a bigot, listen, you're a bigot.
Well, yeah, I'm not a racist, but what? I'm not a sexist, but yeah, well, you outed yourself. And he is as far as the media goes, someone like Ben Shapiro as well. That's about as bad as it gets. Tucker Carlson. But at the same time, if you're talking about network political news, I'm sorry, cable political news and cable news, they're all horrible.
Yeah, but Ben Shapiro and all these other Nazis, they don't have as huge.
Well, Ben's been on Fox. Well, the same. Okay, same viewership, sure.
Yeah.
Ben has been he's guest hosted on Fox News a few times recently, and his ratings to the roof. Fox is still number one. This goes to that whole apathy thing. There should be no reason. Well, first of all, any of these networks that exist, but let alone Fox. The American court system, the American legal system, has made Fox have to put on a label at the beginning of their program. This is not news. This is entertainment. So from the jump, when you at least they're supposed to. That's what the court decided. So from the jump, when you watch Fox, well, okay, this is the news. Of course, people. I'm guessing. Like, I haven't watched Fox News in a long time. Sometimes I'd watch it just see what stupid thing they were saying this week. But so I can't. I don't know how often they put that disclaimer out. But I'm sure they put it in small font and all that. But the point is, there's no reason that network should exist. There should be protests outside their headquarters every day. The federal government should have shut them down a long time ago. Okay, MSNBC should have like a website devoted to take down Fox and lay out why it should be taken down, because they are overt bigots. They are in-your-face bigots. They're giant sexists. They don't hide it. Look at all the lawsuits coming up for Roger Ailes and O'Reilly, for goodness sake. And then they gave O'Reilly the program back, all this stuff. And yet, well, look at them. I mean, look at NBC in general. Why are you hiring Megyn Kelly on your main network?
And firing.
And then firing because she did something overtly racist. She's been racist this whole time. She's never stopped doing that.
That's what I was going to say. You knew when you hired her she was a blatant white supremacist. So why fire her for what you hired her for?
There was no genocide of Native people. For goodness sake, just go on YouTube. If you want to watch the highlights of.
Don't worry, kids. Santa Claus is white. Don't worry, kids. That's the worst part about
Don't
that.
Worry.
Like you don't want another colored Santa Claus coming down your chimney. That you need to worry if that happened.
Yeah. Then we got a problem. Yeah, if it's a person of color. But this is. I mean, I remember. I think this is the last time I actually watched MSNBC for more than 5 minutes. I was in somebody else's house. That's why I was watching it. And at the same time, there were 3 Native people in the Midwest of the United States. I can't remember. I think it was South Dakota. I could be wrong. Who were missing and were feared dead. And it was deathly cold. I mean, it was just winter beyond repair. Snow everywhere, wind chill through the roof. So this is a very serious situation. People's lives are at risk. And for the whole hour, Rachel Maddow goes on to talk about, well, Trump continues to try to tear down Hillary Clinton. And, Hillary, she is not using these types of tactics. She's more dignified. And you can tear down Trump or Hillary in 5 seconds. It's very easy. Just list a few of the horrible things they've done. And yet she uses a National Enquirer headline and front page to try to discredit Trump. And she just the whole episode is about Hillary and Trump, not about the people that they continue to harm. And people who are actually in danger right now. I mean, it took them until very recently. MSNBC did only an hour. The entire year of 2017, they only did 1 hour on the Yemeni genocide. Only 1 hour on the Yemeni genocide. And you have 20 million people right now in need of immediate humanitarian aid. Millions of children on the brink of starvation, with cholera, et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't really matter. But you continue to talk about Trump and how we can get back the Congress, the House, and the Senate. These are the things that matter. Again, this is a game to us. So, and Tucker, like Bill O'Reilly, but like Ben Shapiro, like Megyn Kelly, these are just the overt versions of MSNBC or CNN in terms of their bigotry.
Did you all see that? I posted this thing yesterday. It was a Ring of Fire show, like with this dude Farron Cousins. I mean, I like the dude's show usually. He's a Democrat, but I still agree with a lot of things. You know how it is. You agree with some things, but yesterday I couldn't let that slide. They on this show, first of all, going on and on about how smart a guy and a genius Tucker Carlson is and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that can be debated. I don't think he's a genius in any way, shape, or form. But toward the end of it, they went on to say how people should never, ever go to someone's door like that because being from Florida, they were saying, where they were from, it's reminiscent of oh man, what did he say? Right-wing, I don't remember, extremist, terrifying black people. And they compared Tucker Carlson's having some protesters at his door knocking, saying, we know where you live and blah, 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 to Klan coming to someone's house and burning a cross and hanging a rope. You know what I mean? That was insane. And this is a Democrat, quote unquote, liberal, supposedly on broadcast, and they were comparing this like this.
Well, it just proves my point, right?
I wasn't trying to disprove your point. I'm just
saying,
I'm
just saying that. Hey, that's my whole point right there. When push comes to shove, when we really need you, liberal or conservative, and obviously we go to the liberal side more often. They're nowhere to be found. They're defending the other side because they are a part of the other side. I mean, there were a bunch of people in the liberal media, MSNBC especially, who were on Hillary's team. You could even see leaked documents showing them being invited to Clinton fundraisers, being given special favors, that type of thing. And yeah, You should, if that was, if and I'm sure they have been. If that got leaked about Carl Tucker Carlson,
Carl
or,
Tucker said it sticks, doesn't
you
it?
confuse me. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's stuck so much. Tim calls him Carl Tuckerson, and I've loved that so much that I've started using it. It's messing with my brain to remember his name. Granted, who cares about what his name is? You didn't deserve to have his name remembered correctly. But anyways, if Fox is doing the same thing, and again, I wouldn't be surprised if they have been with Trump. And it comes out that Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson, and I'm trying to remember the names. I just haven't watched Fox in a while. Of all these people helping the Trump administration, helping Trump get elected, liberals would be losing their mind. People would be losing their minds, but because again, they're not on their team. It's red versus blue. And sadly, when it's red versus blue, then it becomes black versus white. And people talk about division. You're creating a division. I mean, I get that one so often. It's ridiculous. Wait a minute. I was born with the line between you and I. And since I have been born, you and people like you have continued to push that line further and further and build up a wall on top of the line. If you're going to continue to defend either of these parties, or go libertarian for goodness sake, or defend what this nation is and the ideals of it and all this, and its constitution that thinks I'm 3/5 of a human being, well, geez, you're adding to the division that you created in the first place. And that's what you see when you watch MSNBC and when you watch Fox, and even the Young Turks. They love Bernie Sanders, for goodness sake. They're a lot harder on Trump than Hillary. They pulled punches on Hillary and a lot of other liberal politicians. So this is what you get. You're going to get people defending Tucker Carlson, and no, leave him alone. Free speech. Well, as Tim said, that free speech, that hate speech, turns into dead bodies. There's a difference between I'm just going to say my opinion, and then you're spewing rhetoric, igniting a fire and bigotry. There's a big difference.
Yeah, we got to wrap soon, but like. It is getting to the point where it's like, oh, you don't like white supremacists, you're a bigot. It is getting to that point, and it's crazy. Like who could think that? So Glenn has given us an award today for the most off-topic show ever, and for us, that's saying a lot.
Wow. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Have we turned?
I just report the facts. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. See, we need more. We need more Glens in the media. Just give us the facts and let's go from there.
Yeah, Glenn.
Please.
So you're gonna tell us. I know some people don't.
What have we won? Did we get a trophy or did we get a bigger storage check this month from George?
It feeds your ego.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think the Pope will be putting it on his Facebook.
Oh boy. Speaking of bigots.
Hey, we can't. I'm sorry. We can't talk bad about the Pope on this show because he's the number one listener.
I would. This would be my last show if that was the case.
Okay.
Pope Francis? No, thank you.
So, Glenn, as always, when we're rapping, what is today's show brought? I mean, people can't see the chat. Oh. So what is today's show brought to us by for you?
Today's episode of the People's Weekly is brought to you by Purple God.
And I'm on Grape Pie.
Is that a drink by Little John?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, man. So, anything else, anyone? Oh, The View Up Here next week. Are you having a show and you want to promote it real quick?
Yeah, I'm back on Wednesday, usual time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. Topic, no idea. It's only Friday. Give me a break.
Yeah, but
maybe
definitely.
That should be the thing for next week's People's Weekly. Don't go in with a topic. Let Tan just run its course.
No, that's why I come here.
The topics are an illusion. They're there to make us think that we're doing something.
It's direction. It's general direction. It's improv with an outline.
Oh, I like that.
That's what this is.
Improv with an outline.
Very good.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
Mine is like Shakespeare. These are the fucking words.
No, but on a very serious note, like back to the beginning of the show, we don't need to talk about it or anything. I'm just going to say, if you haven't heard the November 5th View Up Here, you know, and the second, the first show was this kind of the first show, but the Nolan and Jen show, which was the second People's Radio show of the day, and the View Up Here, check those out. Those are really, really, really good shows. And the View Up Here is like mind blowing. It's like stuff that we don't talk about here at all, you know, generally, except for today, obviously. But like you need to listen to that, and you'll say, "Holy hell, what are they doing to me? And what am I letting them do to me?" So yeah,
we need more outlets like the View Up Here because we need more of a foreign perspective. There's no other country. There's no alleged democracy like the United States to the point where you believe that it doesn't get any better than where you are. Everything that is good, everything that's the best is here. There's no need to go anywhere else but America. And so we need more foreign voices because if you watch the news, if you watch even movies at times, the bias so often is a lot weaker. There's a lot less bias in foreign news, or well, if you live in that country, the news. If you're in England, you watch the BBC, or I think in Canada, one of the channels, the big one is CBC. I may be mistaken. So we need more views up here. So I'm privileged to share this show with Glenn and call him a homie of mine.
The homie Glenn from Canada.
Thanks, guys. But, if you have ethics and you stick to them, you too can put in countless hours of work and expect to never make any money off it.
No. We don't get into this for money. John Brown didn't get into this for money. Martin Luther King didn't get into this for money.
Let's put it this way.
Get into this for money.
Let's put it this way. If I was getting money, do you think I would have had that show I had on Monday?
No.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to lie. People's Radio started for the Soros check.
Yeah. We broadcast live from the LAPD headquarters. No, I'm joking.
That's disgusting.
If you ever been in Los Angeles, by the way, and you've actually seen the headquarters of Los Angeles Police Department, a police department that gets $1 billion annually, it looks like a nice 5-star hotel. It looks like a UN consulate building. It's beautiful architecture.
It's on all our protest videos.
Check out Tim's videos on the People's Radio United YouTube channel. Also, check out Tim Best Buds with a Z on Twitter.
It's generally the one that has the fascist or Nazis standing in front of it on the property, being protected by a bunch of cops. But anyway, anything else you guys want to say that's not a tangent before we take off?
Nope.
If you don't know what it is, type in hashtag MMIW into Twitter or Google.
It is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. Definitely check it out. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you too for being on. Sorry my voice is all messed up. And we'll see everybody next week.